So, when it comes to Heroes of Might and Magic 3, there has always been a long-standing debate about whether SoD, or HoTA, is the best version of the game. And today I decided to make a definitive, never-before-seen tier list that clearly will show which game is the best one. And this tier list will be comprised of all of the positive, beneficial changes that HoTA has brought to our once great game. The first change that I'm going to talk about is heroes and towns always starting with their pre-built stacks. What do I mean by that? Well, for one of them, Galthran, who as we all know can start with 1 to 3 stacks of skeletons, will always start with 3 stacks of skeletons. And the Great Cowl in the Sky will always start with 3 stacks of Gogs, and so on and so forth. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just a tremendous, amazing accomplishment for gaming right here. I mean, this removes any and all necessary strategizing around what you get on day one and instead says, you know what, here's the most army you can possibly have. You want to play as Dungeon Shakti with 3 troglodytes and take a Griffin Con's turn 1, you go do it. Just make sure you have the battle queue turned on. And with that phenomenal change in mind, I'm going to move that right up to the E tier for extra stacks. The next great idea that was implemented in HoTA that makes it the true, definitive version of how to play Heroes 3 over SoD was the online lobby system. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around the online lobby system. There's been some DDoSing, there's been some hackersies, but don't worry. The HoTA lobby is a truly great place that genuinely cares about their player base and makes sure that those who have wronged you once will not do so again. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the HoTA lobby is a free-to-play way to just log on to Heroes 3 and play a game against a friend for free with simultaneous turns included, and has been around for many years. In fact, this lobby was one of the major reasons, along with Sim Turns, HoTA got off the ground in the first place. So you may be wondering, well, doesn't SoD have this lobby? Of course they do! I mean, the HoTA creators wouldn't purposely try to sabotage the original game. Yes, the SoD lobby does exist, behind a $3 a month paywall that anyone is free to pay. And with that in mind, we can put the online lobby right there in the H tier for HoTA. Yup, yet another point for HoTA over SoD. Another change that HoTA introduced to the great game of Heroes 3 that is just phenomenal was nerfs and buffs to this little known faction called Conflux. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what I mean, in SoD, which is what is up on the screen, when you had Conflux, you had a very straightforward build order. You could build sprites on turn 1 and schmork the map. Then you could go for an altar of air, an altar of water, an altar of fire, earth, thought, and then finally the Granddaddy Firebirds from Heroes 2. And their upgrade, the Phoenix. Well, HoTA decided, you know what, that doesn't make much sense. Let's fix this. And thanks to HoTA, we get this beautiful, beautiful town, where instead of having artifact merchants in the middle, we have this building called a Vault of Ashes that increases Phoenix's production by 1 per week. And don't worry, it applies to Firebirds as well, even though it may not say that in the description. Now you may be wondering, but Ramsrock, what got taken out of this town? Well, here is the list for HoTA, and here is the list for SoD. And you'll find that nothing got taken out of the town list. In fact, they just added this one building, a Vault of Ashes. However, they made it so that the sprites required a magic university to build. Yes, truly a wonderful achievement. They also nerfed this faction. They made it so Firebirds were not resistant to all fire magic. as one does, along with many other restrictions on what the town can do. However, they did give it magical new terrain called highlands. You may be saying, isn't that just grass? And I reply with, no, these are highlands, where digging is okay. Just look at this unique, wonderful waterfall that was added to the game. And let us not take into account, be forgotten, that the town itself got a complete overhaul. You can now see the individual bricks on the walls of the Conflux town, and as if 3 towers were not enough, as an original SoD, we now have a bunch of towers raising up into the sky to truly make the Conflux town stand taller than its SoD counterpart. With all of that in mind, we can put the Conflux changes under H for HoTA. The next improvement that HoTA made over SoD is the pure, balanced, totally fair-to-play faction called Cove. Now, for those of you who don't know, when HoTA was launched, its main idea was to make a balanced version of Heroes 3 that, to that point, had not existed. There was nothing like Cove in the original game. Cove brought pirates, and SIDs, and sorceresses, a unit that has never been seen in Heroes of Might and Magic before. They brought Nyxes and Nyx warriors, which are like Behees, but for defense. They brought Nymphs and Oceanage, which are like sprites and pixies, but made out of water. But most importantly of all, they introduced a 3-upgrade unit, something that has truly never been done in Heroes of Might and Magic history. And the 3rd upgrade for these lowly pirates are Sea Dogs, which have something called an accurate shot. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be mistaken, this shot isn't that accurate. It only goes off a percentage of the time after all. But if you're not a fan of Mighty Gorgons, because you have to use melee to use their insta-kill Death Gaze attack, the Sea Dogs are the answer for you. They can shoot and get an accurate shot, which is Death Gaze as an arrow. Yes, truly a necessary accomplishment for this game. A game that, to this point, had been unbalanced and was saved by HoTA, as many will attest to. I don't really need to say much more about this. I haven't even gotten into how wonderful their heroes were, like Jeremy, who used to start with a cannon, and Logistics, a cannon being a 5,000 gold ballista that just did more damage than a ballista, and Miriam, who would turn into a walking Redwood Observatory, and Eovashius, who can clone 2 units at a time instead of just getting 1 clone when he casts it. No, ladies and gentlemen, there is no need to go any further into Cove. We know it belongs to HoTA, and truly helped make Heroes 3 the great game it is today. Which definitely is why it received a heavy, heavy nerf a few years ago. As we've mentioned many times, HoTA has continued to introduce new ideas never before seen to the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 series that have only brought it to heights never before seen. After all, the series only has 1 game, Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Here is just a short list of every creature bank in this game of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Horn of the Abyss Edition. Now, SoD just gave us these pitiful shipwrecks and derelict ships. But HoTA took that and said, you know what? Let's add water topes and beholder creature banks. Truly a necessary improvement to the game for all of the water maps that get played. On top of that, where SoD had your pitiful dragon utopias, Griffin cons that just cannot be beaten without battle queue, Dwarven treasuries, Cyclops stockpiles, imp caches, Medusa stores, and Naga banks. All features that had never been seen, and Dragonfly hives, never been seen before. HoTA took all of that and said, you know what? Instead, we're going to have such wonderful things like mansions, and ivory towers, and dwarven tunnels, and beholder caves, and red towers, and dragon dwellings, and graveyards. Never before seen buildings that definitely have benefited the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 gameplay experience. After all, who wouldn't want to be able to fight one green dragon on their first turn with their 3-stat Gauthran or Shakti and get boots of speed? Or who wouldn't want to take a graveyard, formerly populated by Walking Dead, and now populated by the much better and definitely more difficult zombies, on, say, swamp terrain or lava terrain, using the creatures that you, again, are automatically guaranteed to start with from, say, a Wyston or a Drakon or a Great Cowl in the Sky, and on 1/1/1 receive thousands of gold and a free artifact, along with enough experience to usually level up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, these are features that just needed to be added to Heroes 3, and definitely did not come from Heroes 2 or Heroes 4. And because of this continued salvation of Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I again wish to place this in the H category for HoTA. SoD looking a little paltry up there. Now, this next icon you may not recognize. It's the icon for Factory, a soon-to-be-released in 2018 faction for the Horn of the Abyss mod. Now, don't be dismayed that it's already 2021. No, no, no. Factory is definitely on its way, but I won't include the videos about it here. HoTA themselves have promoted it more than enough to get your excitement humming, with brand new features to the Heroes 3 gameplay experience, like split path upgrades, and Tier 1 sharpshooters. I mean, truly, what more could you want from a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 faction? Now, as we know, HoTA has prided itself on balancing Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So we know that it definitely, absolutely, will not utterly break the gameplay experience of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 to add this faction into the game. For instance, just look at how well Cove did. However, Factory is still not out yet, which means it's only continuing to make Heroes of Might and Magic 3 a great game. But as it is not in HoTA yet, I can't put it into the H category. Instead, we'll move it up to A tier, because of all the things on this list, it's the one that has yet to change anything about SoD. To be determined. However, we do know it's going to come with this wonderful terrain that definitely was not inspired from any other Heroes of Might and Magic games in the franchise. The next item I wish to go over is the change to portrait designs and unit designs. What do I mean by that? Well, in SoD, we had some really ugly unit designs, like the Schmorks and the Schmork Chieftains. But thanks to HoTA, I can clearly tell that this orc is an orc, and this orc chieftain is an orc chieftain. Unlike before, where they looked like an orc and an orc chieftain. Because now, these creatures oink at me. Yes, thank you, HoTA. We really needed that in our lives. In addition, in the castle town, we clearly needed a better differentiation between pikemen and halberdiers. So we gave them both shinier helmets, and pikemen carry a pike, and halberdiers carry a halberd. Again, this is what everybody was clamoring for. Thousands of hours went into that development because thousands of people wanted it. And not to be denied, we have Dendroid soldiers, which can clearly be identified from Dendroid guards because they have spikier branches and red eyes. So not to be confused with the virgin Dendroid guards, the Chad Dendroid soldiers will of course strike fear in their enemies with their dominating 4 speed. HoTA also changed many portrait designs, like Tyraxor and Gurnison and Vey, but we will get into those later. For now though, I'm going to put this again in the H category. Yet another reason HoTA is standing well above SoD, and definitely not well below it, like this tier list may otherwise imply. Now, you may be wondering, Ramsrock39, didn't you already talk about accurate shot? Well, I did, but that's not actually what this next icon indicates. No, no, no. This next icon is for G-spot targeting. What is G-spot targeting? Well, in puny SOD, there were these creatures called Magogs and Liches that could attack in an AoE cloud, something never before seen in the Heroes of Might and Magic franchise. However, the issue with this would be if you had units next to these attacks that were AoE, they would get damaged by those attacks. Well, thanks to HoTA, now you don't have that problem, unless you just suck at the game. Because if you click G when going to attack with a Magog or a Lich, you can attack in a cloud of damage instead of one set spot. Notice this great design feature as these Liches attack these Iron Golems. Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a wonderful feature, and because of that, I can't even put it in the H tier. I'm going to put it in the G tier for G-spot targeting, as this truly stands even above the great modifications HoTA has implemented in our game. As a disclaimer, I actually really do like G-spot targeting. This is like one of the few things I enjoy about this game, and I do want to have that be said in this video. Now, as I mentioned before, HoTA didn't just stop at changing unit designs. No, no, no. They changed hero designs as well. Can't you just tell the difference now between Gretchen and HoTA Gretchen? I truly would never have been able to tell which was which before. Especially with Vey and... Thank you, HoTA. And I really don't think much more needs to be said about this. Finally, we have Rakantor's Cloak, Red Orb of Inhibition, and Resistance. Now, for those of you veterans to the scene, you'll of course know what these icons represent. But to most HoTA players, these may seem really weird to you, because they don't appear in your game. No, no, no. See, HoTA fixed all of this. Where HoTA added a combination artifact for resistance, called the Pendant of Reflection, they decided, you know what? Who needs reflection, after all? Wouldn't the game be much better off if it didn't have such outside interference on their spells, where you could just stop spells from being cast on your army? And in a truly bold move, they took out the Rakantor's Cloak and the Orb of Inhibition, and Resistance, along with the hero who had the Resistance specialty. Dick's out for Thorgrim, am I right, boys? Yes, in a truly outstanding move, HoTA decided to add a skill called Interference, where instead of having Resistance ruin your day as an Armageddon spammer, you can have a player interfere with your ability to cast spells. And now, instead of having 25 spell power, you could just have 1. Yes, I know when I play Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I look for my enemy heroes to be able to interfere with my ability to haste my own units. Truly a wonderful feature to this game. And because of these 3 icons being SoD related, we can put them in the F category, for failures, because clearly they failed to make the game great again. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this segment of today's video, and as we can clearly see, HoTA is well below SoD. I could have kept going, but I didn't want this video to drag on too long, and quite frankly, I don't feel that I need to. Now, I know you can't see it, but I am giving a wonderful pose and demonstration for my thumbnail. It will be super embedded on invisible ink into the thumbnail itself.
Are you seriously playing HoTA by yourself?
Nah, I'm playing SoD!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the More You Know series. We are on episode 4, where we're going to be relearning how to use speed and initiative. Now, of course, with speed and initiative, where it happens is it happens in combat. Of course, the problem is you don't know what speed your units are or what speed the units are on the other side of the battlefield. And so the solution is to use the mouse and right-click on the units and look at their speed value. Now, of course, the difficulty level here is going to be impossible, as we need a lot of features in order to figure this out. So, of course, let's get right into the game and show off the speed and initiative tutorial. Okay, so here we are playing as Castle with our Valeska. Of course, we have received the 3 stacks of units in order to make this much harder than it really needs to be. But either way, we have a fight here against the Walking Dead. Of course, that is where we'll start. Now, of course, here's the battlefield. We are now in combat. And of course, we have started with our initiative. So as you can see, I have right-clicked on the mouse button and have managed to select my marksman, and can see that they have a speed of 8 currently, with a base speed of 6. Now the reason they have 8 speed is because there's grass terrain, and Valeska has a specialty for marksman. Now of course, why we have initiative? Well, as you can see, the Walking Dead, when selected, have a speed of 3, which is much less than 8. So if you can understand, we have 8, and 8 is greater than 3. So of course, following the previous tutorial, we are going to be using the wait button down in the bottom right. And now, we can move our pikemen into position to protect our marksman. Now of course, I have done this in slow motion so that you can see what is happening, because I know this can be very difficult to understand. So either way, we'll still play this out in a quicker sense now. Of course, they're not close enough because they have moved horizontally left 3 tiles, okay? Now, of course, if you want, you can finish with quick combat. That's perfectly fine. But of course, we want to enable the creature queue, because otherwise, we cannot figure this out. So, of course, we'll wait again. Alright, and now we can get our marksman to shoot without range penalty. Now, of course, this is a simple fight. Surely there should be no issues here. But if you need additional help, you could also turn off the queue, as it's meant to be turned off, and, well, maybe you could press the control button and see how far these Walking Dead can go. Now, of course, you don't even have to count these tiles anymore. It's 3 speed, not like it really, well, they're not going to reach you, hopefully. And of course, you could just attack with melee, if you choose to, with your marksman. I wouldn't advise it, but it is an option you can take. So now, we're going to move on with this fight. Just finish with quick combat. Yeah, get the Pandora's box, why not? We can get our nerf logistics, because that's always fun. Of course, we were offered water magic there, so maybe you should take that next time if you have the offer to. Water magic is pretty good, especially since you can use Summon Boat to trample your enemies. Either way, we'll go ahead and move on. Of course, Tyrus is here. She gave us even more units that we certainly need for our future combat opportunities. Of course, we'll go visit the imp cache and see what is happening there. Now, as you can see, the quick combat results are not that good. Now we can look at this results, and it can see, sure, our marksmen are still 8 speed, but here is a bit of a difference, where the imps have the same speed as the pikemen, despite it being their terrain. So of course we could shoot the imps. Why not? Let's hit them. Doesn't really matter in this case. And of course, we're going to be losing a lot of army. And of course, that's not too good. Of course, I've moved a little bit forward in terms of the steps. So we've moved our marksmen to the bottom left corner, as they are faster than the imps, and have pretty much done better than quick combat as. Sure, that's fine. Of course, there are other creature brings that I will get to shortly. Of course, we're going to move on to this scenario that was meticulously crafted by Best. Of course, it's called Patryk the Magician, and let's just begin straight away. Now, of course, we will be using straight fire, as why not? You know, firewall goes burr and all that. Of course, we do have units that we can utilize. We have the Pixies, have 7 speed. We have the Air Elementals with 7 speed, Water Ellies with 5, and of course the AAs that suddenly came out of nowhere. I don't know where they came from. But of course, we'll be deleting all this. Sure, we can go ahead and go to the Utopia. Now you may be wondering, what is the point that I'm trying to make here? Well, of course, you can see that our AAs have the initiative. We have 18 speed, Black Dragons have 15, Gold Dragons have 16, which is 1 higher than the Black Dragons, so the Gold Dragons will be going first, but after we move, we have the Green Dragons at 10 speed, and of course, the Red Dragons at 11. Now, of course, we have some spells that we can utilize, such as Haste. In this case, it's basic haste. It only makes us go 3 speed faster than base. Of course, we could still move. That's perfectly fine. And, of course, if we had Orb of Vulnerability, we could slow down these dragons to about 5 or 6, depending. But of course, it's been nerfed in this version, so it would be 6 and then more likely 6 or 7 for the red dragons. Of course, we have the ultimate spell in the game. Protection from Earth. Of course, that's not what I meant to do. But it's a me click, it's fine. We have Prayer, of course. Prayer is pretty strong, given everything. It also increases speed. In this case, it increases it only by 2, since it's the basic version of the spell. And of course, allows us to devastate the dragons. And then, of course, we also lost AAs, but, you know, it's fine. It's fine. We don't need AAs. 20 good men now, now it's 19. That's perfectly fine. And of course, we got the teapot helmets and whatnots. But, as you can see, since we were faster, we were able to get initiative and be able to cast spells before our opponents, which ultimately are dragons, so they're not really going to cast spells unless they're purple. And, you know, we could also see another one of these banks really quickly. Let's see. Oh, yes, of course. Let's go over there. Now, don't want to confuse anyone. We're using a slower map movement just so we don't get too lost in the sauce. And of course, we'll be traveling to the Wolf Raider Picket, which is a wonderfully crafted creature brink. It's very difficult to conquer. Of course, we do outspeed them already. We have 18 speed as AAs. Of course, that is going to be the result that we win this battle. But with the help of slow, we don't really have to worry about anything, as they would have 5 speed now instead of, well, instead of the typical 4 speed. I don't know, maybe it needed to be changed, maybe not. But either way, we are able to win this. Without a doubt, we don't even have to do anything, I'm pretty sure. Now, of course, they took away that first strike, counter strike from the Archangel, so of course it did not do anything. Of course, if we absolutely need to, we can haste one of these AAs, or just win the fight with quick combat. It's perfectly fine. Of course, we have Cyclops now, but we don't really need them. And that pretty much concludes the speed and initiative. Of course, it can be quite complicated, so if you need to, you can hold control to see that the game can calculate the tiles for you. Or, if you really, really desperately need the help, you can turn on the creature queue and then pretty much stomp the competition with that. I mean, I don't see why you would not need anything like AAs, or maybe a bunch of 3-stack marksmen, like I showed earlier, sorry. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this continuation of the More You Know series, and I'll see you in the next one in roughly, I don't know, a couple of years. Either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the next part of the video. Bye for now.
Hey guys, welcome to the next part of the video. Here we'll be discussing the many, many great features of the battle queue. Now, for those of you who don't know, the battle queue is not actually just representative of HoTA. No. It's actually between HoTA and SoD. And what is battle queue, you may ask? Why, battle queue is this amazingness, absolute awesomeness. And I'm just going to do this so I can move faster. I don't actually need the AAs. The battle queue will carry me. That enable us to take these things called creature banks. For instance, take this red tower. Now, despite what quick combat there may have you believe, we would never be able to take this fight without this thing called battle queue. The battle queue is quite literally the queue of creatures in a battle. And it tells us their speeds and what order they go in and all of the other very important information. What's that? Oh, sorry. I'm getting a note from my editors that it doesn't do any of that. Instead, it just puts the icons down on the bottom of the screen. What tells you the speeds is if you just right-click on the units. But nobody has time for that. Come on. No, instead, we have the battle queue. And because of that, I know that my Titans will get to go before all 5 stacks of these fire rallies. Now, which stack is which? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you hover over it, you can just faintly see the blue tinged highlight of the creature. Or if you highlight over the creature, you can see the blue tinge down in the battle queue. I mean, this is just spectacular right here. The true pinnacle of game design. We would never have been able to know otherwise. Now, the battle queue still doesn't tell you how far the creatures move. You have to hold down control for that, or, again, you could just count the hexes like used to have to do. But, we can't all have everything. Now I'm going to cast Mirth on my leprechauns, and we'll see if it works. But more importantly, notice what happens to this stack of fire elementals. They're the 4th stack in the battle queue. If I don't know, melee hit them with the Titans. Because after all, even though Titans are ranged units, we all love their no melee penalty. So I can just walk over here and boom. And look at that, ladies and gentlemen! The fire elementals are no longer there! They're gone from the battle queue! Now, you never know. They might have still been alive. They could have come back. But no, thanks to the battle queue, I know that those fire elementals are gone. And I can move my leprechauns, which are definitely a Heroes 3 exclusive creature, away from all of these other fire elementals. That didn't work. Now, I can also cast a spell called Sorrow, but it will affect no one, because fire elementals have no sorrow in their bones. And thanks to the battle queue, I know that this fire elemental stack will be the first one to move. Definitely not because I just watched them move first. No. I needed the battle queue to tell me that. So I'm going to shoot them. And look, now there's only 3 fire elementals in the queue. And the Titans are moved all the way down. They just used all their initiative. So they're not there anymore. I mean, really, where would we be without it? And they didn't get morale again. But as you can see, I mean, the battle queue is just the greatest thing since sliced bread. So look at these creatures moving around. And look what happens if I wait with these leprechauns. Now it says their next turn isn't until after the Titans on round 5. But if I wait, magically they went behind the fire elementals! Oh man, it is just insane in the membrane, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'd love to show you what happens if we get morale, but apparently the game doesn't want to let us do that. Oh, and notice the Titans just got morale. Not the Mirthed Leprechauns for 88 more turns. No, no, no. The Titans got morale, which meant that their picture didn't even move from the battle queue. And it's still their turn. They got all their initiative back, which is the only reason I was able to win that fight. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, battle queue is just the greatest of all time. And thanks to things like battle queue, I can take what's called a Griffin cons. Now, those of you who have played Heroes 3 before know that Griffin cons are very serious business. I mean, after all, how can we ever figure out what order creatures are going to move in a Griffin cons? They're all Griffins. It's impossible. Well, thanks to the battle queue, I can easily determine that. For instance, I know because of the battle queue that the Royal Griffins will go first. And if I slow all of these Griffins, they're still gonna go first. Who would have thought it? And look at that morale again. So now that's a little easier to see here with the terrain, the blue highlight around the creatures. Now, did you want to see how much damage you were doing on each hit? Well, that's too bad. You can't. You gotta click this little button on the bottom here, this little taskbar here, to figure that out. Or you could quickly see it when it pops up, as opposed to the whole area here being that little taskbar and having arrows to go up and down. I mean, come on, no one does that. And look at that. See, the Griffins got morale, and their unit stack just went again. It's thanks to the battle queue. There's no other way we could have known that. Look, it happened again. And now, I was very critical of the battle queue when it was first released, I'll admit. And it received some well-deserved hatred from the Heroes 3 community. After all, I was just ungrateful, not appreciating the battle queue for the greatness that it is. I'm going to show off what happens with Sorrow. Well, my tune has clearly changed. I mean, notice, if you get Sorrow on them, you still can't tell which Griffin stack they are in the queue there. It's just amazing. But one very, very important note from many, many people about the battle queue was how else could you possibly take a Griffin cons without it? You would definitely lose track of which Griffin stack moves when, if you had to just follow along. So, with that in mind, allow me to very nicely help us. Now, I have gone for almost 39 turns, a total coincidence. And this is not round 32. Now, without using the battle queue, bam, now that's what's really useful, the fact that you can turn it off. Thank you for that. But on round 39, as that begins, I need to know, well, which Griffin stack moves first. After all, they might get morale and reach my AA. After all, that would be a shame. We can't have that happen. So, with battle queue, I could easily figure it out. But I'm going to do what no one can possibly do in their entire lives. And tell you right now which stack's going to move first. It's this one. This stack is going to go first. Followed up by this one, then this one. And notice, just notice, it doesn't actually matter whether I have the battle queue turned on or off. See, I was right. 1, 2, and then 3. And I didn't need the 2 2s on here to tell me that. I could just tell because I watched them all 39 other turns. 38 other turns. But notice, the battle queue wasn't necessary for this fight. I casted this crazy spell called Slow, which made them not able to reach me at all. Notice, if I cast Clone, I can't, because I have an AA. And Vest, the amazing person he is, didn't put water magic on this hero. But if I did, I would go to clone these AAs, and there would be 2 AAs down here in the queue. Which is just truly what I need, but I don't need a battle queue to take this fight. No one does. Just stay out of range. And you have nothing to fear. I know, I'm asking too much of the Heroes 3 community, but you too can accomplish these holy things.
My god, you're so disgusting. That's not SOD, that's HoTA.
I know, well, you know.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this video as it's winding towards its conclusion. There's one more major note that I want to talk about regarding Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Horn of the Abyss. And that is the Inferno faction. Now, I, along with many others, feel that this faction is by far the worst in all of Heroes 3. It starts on lava terrain for one thing, and who would want to live in lava? But on a more serious note, it is just very underwhelming compared to other factions. The best thing it has going for it is either a start with Ignatius and his guaranteed 3 stacks of Imps, or the Great Khal in the Sky and his guaranteed 3 stacks of Gogs, which can turn 1 be upgraded to Magogs, and can use G-spot targeting to really clear any starting zone mob on the map, other than other shooters. But, I mean, clearly that's not enough. So let's take a look at the Inferno town of Cinderspire. As you can see, it's kind of underwhelming. I don't see much fear inspired here. I mean, the castle gate's not even useful because there is no other Inferno town, and you would need another one all the way built up just to be able to use it, which, I mean, come on, who would? And their tier 7 are Archdevils. I mean, they look like devils, just arcs. They're not great. I mean, anybody who's anybody would rather have angels or archangels, which are much more abundant on the map. In addition, they don't get trading posts in their starting zone, because who would want to trade with these devil-loving fucks? And, I mean, really, just, they don't have a lot going for them. Unless, of course, you want to use Armageddon and Freed Sultans and Spicy Boys and just fuck everybody up. And if you don't get Armageddon, thanks to HoTA, you can just research it. But what am I talking about? Yeah, I mean, there's plenty you could do here with Inferno, but there's plenty you can't do as well. And it's because of that that I have to agree with many people saying it needs a buff. After all, here is the nothingness that Inferno is capable of. Like, I look at my town map, and if I want to know where the obelisk is, well, I mean, it doesn't even tell me. Like, how can I figure out where this is on my mini-map? It's a giant-sized map after all. There is simply no way for me to possibly figure out where that obelisk is pointing me out to. And that's just a huge downfall in Inferno's design. I mean, really, they could have done a lot better. Never mind, guys, Inferno doesn't need to be buffed. And now we interrupt the very serious nature of this video for some poetry by the granddaddy of all Heroes 3 tier lists, Dark War 3. Hello, chat. Get you dick out for Dave. Let's go hooey. Get your hooey out for Dave. Right now. Where is sexy voice Dave? The higher APM Dave, the bigger it grows. Poetry by Dark. HoTA is Fake Heroes 3! Fake.